So our girls who game, they think they're gaming, but meanwhile, we're talking about design thinking, we're talking about digital literacy skills, computational thinking. These girls are basically getting their greens through video game play, but they're learning so much more. And it's a beautiful approach to learning. It's play based, it's low risk, and at the same time, they go, wow, I've really learned.
I guess the best way to describe Katina is, at least for me, is a force of nature. I've been privileged to work with Katina now for the past, starting on 4 years actually, supporting her efforts at Dell and our efforts at Advanced Learning Partnerships in doing professional learning across Canada. And as Katina shares in our conversation, her efforts to launch Girls Who Game, Soar with Mentor, just two things that are amazing opportunities and really innovative ways in which we're supporting in these both these cases young women in technology and other opportunities is just it's definitely worthy of praise on her behalf, and she is just somebody who is kind of relentless when it comes to making sure things get done. And I just actually spent the day with her. She hosted her first back in person Dell Roadshow in Toronto. It was an amazing success. And she's also on the verge of launching something brand new. And all I'll say is PS43. That's the only hint I'll give you. You can Google it, see if you can figure it out. It's not quite ready for prime time, but I think I'm safe in at least teasing out that part of it. But enjoy our conversation as we talk about just sort of the big picture around why it's so important that we support young girls in technology and STEM and leadership and just professional learning at large. Katina is a somebody who's just on the forefront of this work, and so if you're not paying attention to her, you should be. And I think after this conversation, you'll know why. So enjoy my conversation with Katina. Well, Katina, I am so glad that you're here to talk to us. Full disclosure, Katina and I work pretty closely together trying to change the world in Canada. And we haven't quite finished changing the world, but we're starting. And Katina, you've been working with Dell now for how long?
It'll be 5 years in August. Hard to believe, and yes,
Yeah.
Dean, we are changing the world. It doesn't just happen at once. It happens in little steps and bits, but we are making progress and we're moving forward. So that's the main thing.
Well, and I know when you and I first started working together, this was just like a very, very short time before the world did its thing and changed all around. So there was lots that went on there. But you had already begun something that I still think is one of the most innovative uh, opportunities we have here in Canada and the US. This is not just a Canadian initiative, it's North American. But just tell for folks who are not familiar with Girls Who Game, can you just tell about like where that idea came from and why we're doing it and what we've seen happen over the last few years?
Sure, absolutely. So basically, what happened was coming from the Toronto District School Board as an educator and central leader type of idea. I came to Dell as the education strategist, and for the first time ever, moving from that female environment into the tech space, it was very clear that the numbers are accurate, that even though 50% of the workforce is female, less than 30% are women in STEM, and it's STEM industries and STEM fields. And I was like, wow, this is really true. So, what can we do about it? And then, as I was traveling across the country prior to 2020, just seeing the incredible innovations that are happening and how we're working with technology enabled learning, which is fantastic to support um, what we want our students to be doing. There's definitely a clear indicator that the girls are still stepping back. And Not sure what it is. It's societal issues, etc. But why aren't girls getting involved in STEM and staying there? So we know the research, what it says, by around grade 9 or 10, they stop taking the maths, they stop taking the sciences, they say it's too hard. And so when you go to the research, it really does clearly illustrate you have to do three things to get girls into STEM and then keep them there. One, we have to create a girl centric ecosystem for them. So give them an actual girl space where they can learn from each other, build their confidence, and feel comfortable making mistakes. Oftentimes, our young ladies tend to feel that it's embarrassing to make a mistake. They don't want to fail. And so, as a result, they don't take the risk. They don't want to try because they don't want to look foolish. So, we want to create that space where they feel comfortable with their peers that, hey, I'm going to try this. If I make a mistake, that's okay. Nobody's perfect, but we need to get them there. And so by creating that girl centric ecosystem, that's one way of doing it. And then the second way to get girls into STEM is get them an opportunity to do some authentic learning so that they can become change agents. And our girls tend to be very social justice oriented. And so let's build upon that by connecting them with things that they can actually do in their local communities as well as global ones to really be agents of change and make a difference. Because if they can see that they're having impact, they'll say, hey, I really like that. Let's keep going. So that authentic learning is really important. And along that authentic learning, we want to be giving them skills like communication skills, collaboration, critical thinking and problem solving, being creative and innovative, and really encouraging them to be self-directed learners. So once they leave class, it doesn't mean they stop learning. Dig in more. So we want them to be passionate about what they're learning so they stay there. And then the final one is, sadly, again, going back to the data, because those numbers of women in STEM are so low, less than 50% of high school girls even know a woman in STEM. And so, what we have to do is actually show them women in STEM so they can see that, hey, she's doing it. Why can't I? So, we really need to make sure the role modeling is there. What we call as our third pillar in Girls Who Game is the mentorship piece. So, those three things is what we need to do to engage girls in STEM and keep them there: girl centric ecosystem, authentic learning, and mentorship. And so with that, I brought the idea out to the team and I said, hey, can we try this? And we want to do it through video game play. And so our friends at Microsoft were like, hey, what about Minecraft? And I'm like, that would be perfect. So our girls who game, they think they're gaming, but meanwhile, we're talking about design thinking, we're talking about digital literacy skills, computational thinking. These girls are basically getting their greens through video game play, but they're learning so much more. And it's a beautiful approach to learning. It's play based, it's low risk, and at the same time, they go, wow, I've really learned. And so started with a pilot in 5 cities across Canada, both urban and rural, inner city, etc. And what was interesting was the results were all the same. At the beginning, the girls we did a bit of a diagnostic around the competencies and their gameplay and their digital skills, and they were all sort of leveled. And then at the end, every single group self-assessment, they scored themselves at level 4. They could see themselves how much they had grown through the program. So they learned to take on challenges. They learned about design thinking. They learned how to work together all through a video game environment. So it was engaging and it was cool because it was, some of these girls would not necessarily be attracted to a Girls Who Code program because they think, oh, that's not for me. But when you say game and video game play, again, it's low risk. It's, you don't have to be smart in many people's minds to play games, but at the same time, we are teaching them to code. And so they come out of the program going, wow, I know how to do these things. And just, I'll talk about in Saskatchewan, when I first went out to see the girls, one of the first clubs, I was asking, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they were like cashier, waitress, things that they were seeing in their everyday lives. And then at the end, when they invited me back, they made a big bulletin board that said, I want to be a coder. I get this. And you could just see the confidence, the growth, because they realized, hey, I can do this. There's nothing genetic about being in STEM. This is like anyone can do this if they try. A lot of it is just getting that confidence, trying new things. And if it doesn't work out, you try it again. So building that persistence, resilience, and doing that as a group of peers really makes a difference. So,
Well,
should I
and
keep going, Dean?
yeah, and I think that's why Minecraft is, such a gateway because of number one, there's some familiarity with some people already, and so that kind of helps it. And it's also like it sits as it's an environment, and so for some they don't think of it as gaming. Other people, that's exactly what they think of it as. So it serves so many purposes, which I think has really been helpful. And I know we've had a few people been going through this for a couple of years. I'm thinking in particular of our friends in Toronto School District, Zelia and Kamla, who are, I think they're on their year 3 or 4. They've been doing this for a while. Can you just
Mm-hmm.
talk about like,
Yeah.
not only is this sort of sparking some confidence and some new ideas, but what about those that are kind of really taking this next level? Where are they at on their journey?
Well, what's interesting is I think post pandemic, everybody's trying to figure out how do we help our students get back into learning again. There's a lot of things that we have to address: mental health and wellness, that time off from school, the gaps potentially from some of our learning. And so there's a Canadian research project that came out, and it's called playjouer.ca. And so basically, what this research team is trying to do is figure out how can we use play-based learning, because we know kids love to play. How can we use play-based learning to bring kids back from the pandemic? And so we did see this research proposal come out, and they said, we're looking for applicants across the country who are committed to play-based learning, grades 4 to 8. And so the McMurk team, one of our GWG teams, did apply for that project, and they were accepted into it. And so it is considered screenplay. That's what they call it. And so it's a different way of engaging kids, of bringing joy, of having them come together. We didn't have to stop during the pandemic, and so our clubs kept going online. And many groups actually say there's a sense of joy that happened because the kids were connecting, and it really helped them through a really challenging time. So Kamala and Zilia have built upon that, and they were saying, yeah, this is really part of screenplay. We've been doing this. And so now they're going to be sharing their experience with other Canadians through this research project in Girls Who Game.
Well, and all of that just adds that more credibility to this, because I don't think it's as much of an issue now, but I know, Katina, even in the early days, just trying to convince people that gaming and all of this was academic, right? I mean, yes, it was play. We don't want to lose sight of the fact that it's fun. Like, that's part of it. Like, why can't that be part of it? But it also is, really points to the deep learning that happens here too. So I think adding this sort of research component adds that level of credibility and academia, if you will, to what is sometimes perceived as like it's just fun, and it is, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, game-based learning. Educators have been doing it for a long time. It's just different tools that we do it with. So when we look at game-based learning, it is really about progression. So students have the opportunity to progress at their own pace. They build that mastery of learning because they can't get onto that next level unless they're able to be successful. So again, really helping them with persistence, instant feedback that they're getting when they're playing, because it's either it works or it doesn't. So there's an opportunity for that assessment right away, right in the moment. And that helps because then the kids can build on that. They're not waiting for anything. And really, we can talk about flow as well. They can get into a groove, and then they can keep going and building upon their learning as they go. And what's interesting, I've actually been working with a group of our level 2 Girls Who Game from 3 different school districts, and we're working to do a March break camp. And the girls are teaching the campers how to code. and in block code in Minecraft education, as well as Python. And what's interesting about that is, so this group of 12 we were just on last night, and each of them approached it. They're in these partner sets and they're teaching how they're going to do it for the presentation. And all of them at the end said, I just learned something new, and they each were learning from each other. They all know how to do that coding and all they know how to play, but then seeing the different approaches, techniques, it just shows you there's not one right way to do things. There's a variety of ways. And by learning multiple strategies, different ways to do things, these girls are building up great skill sets, building that learning community while having fun. What more could we ask for? And yes, that's how the deeper learning. Now they
Absolutely.
want to stay in there. They actually want to dig in more and keep going. And it was me. I was like, okay, we have to stop. And they're like, oh no, we want to stay on. So that's the kind of thing
Right.
you want from kids, that they want to keep learning.
Well, absolutely, and I think too there's there's explicit parts, but just the idea of community and learning together is such a an integral part of this. Like, this is not about go off on your own, and this is about I think too some of the best learning that I see is not kids with their own devices. It's three kids hovering around a device, having a conversation and looking for feedback and that and the part of that you mentioned as one of the core components of Girls Who Game is the mentoring. And I think too what I like is that is a part of it. But I know you launched another initiative called Soar with Mentor, where we're now talking not so much preteen girls, if you will, or young teenage girls, but this is young women who are much closer to their and kind of just launching their careers. But the fact that we want to provide for them connections to people with maybe a little bit more experience. And so, can you talk a little bit what Soar with Mentor is and who that impacts?
Sure. So I'm pretty active in the social space around Girls Who Game. And so during the pandemic time, we were getting feedback from some young women in the post secondary space saying, hey, where's our Girls Who Game during the pandemic? And it was like, yeah, we need to think about them, because oftentimes, as we know from the data, these post secondary women in STEM are at very low numbers, so they're already feeling isolated. And then you add the pandemic onto that, all of a sudden they're feeling very, very alone. So, myself, along with my colleagues, Nikki Madrazo and Lisa Gillis from Dell, we were saying, what can we do to support them? And so together we built this program called Soar with Mentor. And basically, what we wanted to do for post secondary women in STEM, and then we also included other faculties because we recognized that they needed it too. So it started as a STEM initiative, but it has grown since then. And really, what we wanted to help them with was career readiness skills. And that could be anywhere from learning around digital branding, how to present yourself in the digital space, how to work with a mentor, how to do your resume, how to practice interviews, public speaking, the things that we want our women to feel empowered to do in the space. And then we also wanted to help them with what are the new technologies that are coming out. So things like 5G, AI is huge, the cloud, or security. These are things that many of them are already covering within their own studies. Let's make sure they have this safe space to ask questions. And we can do this through having this synchronous mentorship session. So we would bring 40 students and 40 mentors. We would have a short keynote on career readiness, and then we would give them a mentor for that day. And they would go into the Zoom room and talk about what they had heard with the career readiness. Then they'd come back out and listen to a short keynote on what's new in IT and go back in and talk about it. We gave them conversation guides because we had a lot of students who have never had the opportunity to talk to somebody in industry. So some of them were like, well, what do I talk about when I'm in a mentorship relationship? So the conversation guide helped them, give them prompts, et cetera, what they might be able to ask. And soon, again, through this speed networking opportunity, now we're seeing that confidence grow in these young women. And that's what, to me, it doesn't matter what age you're at, whether you're young in Girls Who Game or further along with Soar with Mentor, that confidence is really what women need to stay in this space and to feel comfortable talking about technology, maybe things that they don't know. We still have to work on that confidence gap and show them that they have support and people they can talk to. So that's been very exciting. And we've been around with Girls Who Game since 2019, going into the ninth cohort. With SOAR, we're now on our fifth cohort, and it has also evolved. We're doing both the speed networking as well as one-to-one virtual mentorship. So lots of opportunities for the girls to go through a scaffolded program and hopefully end up at Dell Technologies. We'd love to have them there because it would be great to have more women. But we've also been able to have a student voice committee to make sure we're giving them the content that they want to see. We've been able to hire some of these young ladies to work with us and to help as apprentices as part of the program. And so we're building this entire ecosystem from starting K to 12 to Soar with Mentor and then to the Dell space, and just showing how as women and allies we feed forward and feedback, because although we are mentoring them, they are mentoring us. I'm still mastering things like TikTok and other tools that they already know very much about. So it's a great synergy that we can learn with and from each other.
So you mentioned with regards to Soar with Mentor that part of the work is to help them be thinking about, future and current technologies like an AI. I'm wondering more broadly, as you think about schools, what should schools be paying attention to and thinking about, as they think about what's next? And it could be technology, but just learning in general.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, again, just post pandemic, what we're seeing is we really need to support everyone with mental health and wellness. So that's for staff, students, everyone. We need to just be gentle with each other and have a lot of compassion and patience as we make our way back, and really be considerate and show that empathy that all of us need as we figure out what's the next part of life. So that to me is number one, because as we know, a child cannot learn if they're not in that good space, and we really want to make sure that that's there. And not just the child, we have to be thinking about our educators as well and our leaders, because we're seeing that impact, the burnout, just feeling like, the shortages that we're seeing out in this space. And so that's something as a country we need to address, and we need to try and support as many as we can. Something fun that we're trying to do is we've started an innovation networking group where we are pulling some of these innovative and excitable educators to say, hey, come join us. Let's create this group so we can generate some excitement. And then what we would like is then to bring some of that excitement in an easier, more bite-sized format and pass it down to others to get them excited about what's happening in the space. And so that can be anything from AI to esports to other emerging technologies, security that's so important right now. So we are actively working with educators and really encouraging those innovators to keep innovating, because we need to keep moving forward as we come back and to become just in that safer space that we need to be in for learning. But we can't stop because technology is still going forward without us, so we still need to keep pace with that.
No, that's so true. And again, I'm excited about some of the things that you and I are conspiring about, and we've seen some successes, but we know everybody out there is doing the best they can, and at the
Absolutely.
same time, I think we want to engage and help them continue to amplify their work and maybe even explore some things that are new. And I think that's kind of at the heart of what we do. Well, before I let you go, I want to ask you just a couple of more personal questions. So my first one is, what are you reading of late? And it could be professional, it could be personal, and not to do with anything. So anything that you're reading that you're enjoying?
Yeah, there's actually, I'm in a book club just in my local community. And when I saw this question, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is great. I'd love to share this. It's called The Address Book. And it really is, we take for granted, I think, in Canada because we all have, either homes or places where we live that have very street signs and numbers. But through this book, what we're finding is culturally, it's very different throughout the world. So it really does talk about each country and how they approach address. And so what it talks about is really about our identities, our culture, and everything else that goes with it. So an interesting read. I'm enjoying it from an equity lens too.
Well, knowing the travel junkie that you are, that doesn't surprise me either. What about anything on the Netflix streaming side of things? Any series that are kind of captured your imagination?
Oh dear. Well, White Lotus was fun. So definitely jumped into that. Both season one and season two. And I am excited to see, I believe it's season three of Succession that's coming up. So it just lots of different things that I'm lining up and making sure that I can get some time to watch because it's just fun.
Well, and the crazy thing with some of it now is like they don't come out on a regular cadence like it used to be in the old days. The new television
Mhm.
season started in September, so you knew that. Well, now all of a sudden, who knows? Like, was the one I was looking at was Billions. Like they go like a year and a half,
Mhm.
and then they all of a sudden start up again. I mean, part of it is because people aren't actually watching it when it comes out. They might wait until all of because everybody can. That's the beauty of it, I guess. You can watch it whenever you want to watch it. But um,
Yeah.
last question is, and again, you can speak like you're in Whitby, am I? Are you not?
Pickering in the Durham area. Hmm.
Pickering. Pickering. So you can talk about Pickering or you can talk about this Toronto. But I'm always curious if someone were to come and visit, and sure, they'll do their first Google search of things to do in Pickering or things to do in Toronto, and of course, the usual suspects will come up. But what would you suggest is maybe more of a hidden gem or something that might not be on the top of the list, but something that you think people should see or experience in that Greater Toronto area?
Well, I am going to pick something local and close to home because it really is what I do on a daily basis. And when I visit a place, yes, I like to see the touristy types of places, but I also like to see those little nooks and crannies and hidden gems that are available. So for me personally, I like to be outside. Nature for Canada is amazing. And I'm really blessed to live right in a location in a community where I have the Rouge National Park. It's the newest national park in Canada, right at the top of my street. So incredible hiking trails, access to nature and animal life. So it's fantastic. And we can bring our kayaks in there. But of course, during the winter time, we can do some snowshoeing through there. At the same time, if I go south, I'm right at Lake Ontario, and we have this incredible waterfront trail. And that is part of my daily regime where you can just walk along the water, great pathways all the way down, bicycle path or whatever the weather may be. And it just, you see the natural beauty of where we are even though we're in the city. So that to me is something that people should explore when you have that opportunity. Yes, see the CN Tower. Yes, go to Scotiabank Arena for the sports. But don't forget, we have a national park right in the city. We have beautiful boardwalks and waterfront trails that you can explore too. And ice skating, of course. So lots of fun there.